When I married my husband, I thought I was stepping into a new chapter of love, unity, and family. I knew he had children from his first marriage, and I was prepared to embrace them with open arms. I understood it might take time for them to adjust, and I promised myself that I would never try to replace their biological mother, but rather to be another source of care, guidance, and support in their lives. I cooked for them, I helped with their homework, I bought them gifts, and I tried to show up for every small milestone in their lives. I wanted them to see me not as an intruder, but as someone who genuinely cared. At first, I thought I was making progress. They seemed polite, they smiled, and they accepted what I offered. But little did I know, underneath those polite faces, resentment and rejection were festering, planted by words I couldn't hear. One day, everything came crashing down when I asked one of them to do a simple chore. It was something ordinary, nothing out of the ordinary for children to help with around the house. But the response I got burned into me. They looked me in the eye and said, "You're not our real parent. We only answer to our biological mom and dad." My heart sank, and for a moment I was speechless. It wasn't just the words, it was the defiance, the venom, the deliberate attempt to remind me that I was an outsider. It didn't happen just once. The phrase became a shield they used against me whenever I tried to guide them, discipline them, or even simply ask them to respect me in the household I helped maintain. Every time I heard those words, it felt like a knife digging deeper into my heart. And my husband, though sympathetic, often brushed it off, saying they just needed time. But time wasn't healing. Time was only making them bolder. I began to notice the way they dismissed my efforts. I cooked meals, only to be told they didn't want my food. I bought gifts, only to see them left unopened in the corner. I attended school events, only to watch them run past me as though I didn't exist. I was treated not as a step-parent, but as a ghost in the very home where I paid bills, cleaned rooms, and sacrificed my own peace for their comfort. It wasn't just disrespect, it was dehumanizing. I began to ask myself, why am I pouring my soul into people who have already decided I don't matter? Why am I shouldering the responsibilities of a parent, while being denied even the basic recognition of one? The breaking point came during the holidays. I had spent weeks preparing, buying groceries, decorating the house, and planning a special dinner so that everyone could enjoy a warm, family-centered Christmas. I thought maybe, just maybe, the holiday spirit would soften their hearts. But instead, in the middle of all the preparation, one of them shouted across the room, "We don't need you here. You're not part of this family. Stop pretending." The others laughed, nodding in agreement. My chest tightened, my throat burned, and for a moment, I couldn't breathe. I walked into the kitchen, away from their mocking stares, and I stood there in silence. I looked at the table I had set, the food I had cooked, the decorations I had carefully placed. And then, a cold realization washed over me. They were right, not about me not being part of the family, but about the fact that I had allowed myself to be treated as if I didn't belong. I was doing everything, and yet I was nothing to them. That night, I made a decision. If they only wanted to answer to their biological parents, then so be it. From that moment, I stopped picking up the slack. I stopped cooking elaborate meals. I stopped cleaning up after them. I stopped paying for their extras, no more shopping sprees, no more gadgets, no more gifts from me that went unacknowledged. I pulled back my love, my time, and my resources. And suddenly, the house shifted. Their laundry piles began to grow. Their favorite snacks disappeared from the pantry. Their rides to school or events became uncertain. The little luxuries they took for granted were no longer magically appearing. Slowly, they began to realize just how much I had been doing all along. At first, they complained loudly, mocking me even more, saying I was lazy or useless. But the irony was bitter. They had been so quick to call me unnecessary, and yet my absence was being felt in every corner of the home. When my husband began to notice the growing chaos, I calmly told him, "Your children have made it clear. They only want to answer to their biological parents. I'm simply respecting their wishes." For once, he was silent. He couldn't deny the truth. He had allowed them to disrespect me, thinking it was harmless rebellion, but now the consequences were staring him in the face. Weeks passed, and the children's complaints grew quieter. The bravado they once showed began to crumble when reality set in. They missed warm meals waiting for them after school. They missed the extra treats and little surprises I used to slip into their lives. They missed the comfort of knowing someone was looking out for their needs beyond the basics. Eventually, one of them, the same one who had shouted at me, came into the kitchen and muttered a hesitant sorry. The others followed, some less sincerely than others, but I could tell the sting of losing my efforts had finally humbled them. It wasn't about revenge for me, it was about respect. They had to learn that words have consequences, and that taking someone's love and effort for granted only leads to loss. I didn't welcome them back immediately. I wasn't going to pretend everything was fine. They needed to earn my trust, to show that they understood the gravity of their actions. And over time, with slow steps, some of them did. They began to say thank you. They began to acknowledge my presence. They began to treat me, not as a replacement for their mother, but as someone deserving of respect in her own right. Not all wounds heal, and not all relationships are restored. But what changed most of all was me. I learned to stop begging for recognition that wasn't given freely. I learned to stop breaking myself to prove my worth. And I learned that sometimes, the most powerful change comes not from shouting back, but from stepping away and letting the absence of your efforts speak louder than words. They once said they only answered to their biological parents. But in the end, they had to face the reality. The person they dismissed as nothing had been holding everything together. And while they may regret their cruelty, I no longer need their approval. I found strength in my silence, dignity in my distance, and power in reclaiming my worth. And perhaps that's the greatest revenge of all, not screaming, not fighting, but simply showing them that I was never at the bottom. I was the backbone they didn't appreciate until it was gone.